For me, I just want to know, like, were you happy with Speedster leaving? Though? Were you guys okay with that?
Hey, you know answer.
Okay, you know what? We'll leave it.
No, you know what? Honestly, we're all sad he left because,
Yeah.
I mean, he was a big part. I mean, we started with him. So we're all definitely sad that he left. We're sad about the circumstances. We're sad because he was part of our bigger plans of how we were going to take Popcast to the next level. But at the end of the day, you also need to understand that we're all in different phases of our lives, and sometimes something doesn't serve you any longer and you need to then move on, and that's what he had to do for himself, and we can't stop him from doing that. So of course, I mean, we're gonna be sad and emotional about it, but we also can't chain him to the chair. You know, he needs to go off and do what he needs to do. And shout outs for him for being brave enough to at least tell us. Because some people hold on and then they end up dragging people down because they want to hold on.
Up,
do you understand?
Yeah.
So rather for him, I'm glad that he was man enough to at least say, look, this is not for me anymore, and let me part my ways. And, I mean, we're still cool with him. Like,
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Is VG still around though? Like the past 2 episodes, 3 or whatever?
Yeah, no, VG is still part of the podcast. He's just dealing with a few issues from a workspace as well as a personal space. Okay. So it's not to say that he's gone completely. It's just life happens to a lot of people, and you know, sometimes you need to take time out and deal with them. So he's doing that, and then he'll be back when he's ready. 1, 2. Hey, what's up? This is Ms Cosmo, and you're watching Everything SA Music.
Ms Cosmo, welcome to Everything SA Music. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. So can we just start with a little background story of where you originally born and like where you from?
I am born and bred in Johannesburg. I have lived here my whole life. I went to school in Bryanston Primary, Bryanston High. I lived in Sunninghill for a while, and then moved on over to Lone Hill, obviously for schooling purposes.
Yeah.
I also went to the University of Johannesburg where I studied finance, and I worked in a bank for 3 years. I'm sure some people don't even know that. But yeah, I'm a homegrown girl. I literally just like to have a good time, and yeah, man, I'm Ms Cosmo.
That sounds like the North lifestyle, yeah.
Soft life.
Soft life.
I don't know if it's soft life as such, but I just think, you know, I think we got by just like most middle class children.
Okay, so like let's start with young Ms Cosmo. Who were you when you were young? Were you like an outgoing girl, or were you into yourself, introvert, or what?
I wasn't an introvert. I don't think I even am right now. I was definitely out there, always performing for my friends, performing for my parents. By performing, I mean I was always just out there, just like making a noise, making people pay attention to who I am. And my love for music also started when I was at a very young age as well, because I would always mimic what I would see on music videos on TV, whether it be the likes of Missy Elliott, Ludacris. I really enjoyed their types of music and the dance moves and all of that was happening on TV. So that was really amazing. And yeah, I think I've always just been a typical kid, just out there, just trying to have a good time with life, as well as even when it came to school life and varsity. I've always been a bit of a rebel, but also still at least doing well at school because I passed and I got my degree.
You were studying finance, something like that.
Yeah, I studied finance at the University of Johannesburg. And that was some interesting times. I think a lot of kids obviously go through university expecting this big bad world, and I think once you get through university you need to kind of pull your socks up and become an adult. So it was quite a bit of a change from that perspective, but I enjoyed my youth.
But like by rebel, what do you mean? Right? Like, you know?
I think everybody's kind of gone through 1 or 2 things where they've gotten into trouble, whether it's bunking a class or whether it's not going to a certain assembly or whatever the case may be. So I had my days when I would do those things, but then I obviously got myself back onto the straight and narrow. Otherwise I wouldn't have been a prefect if if I was completely off bounds. But I just think it was also just the youth my youth kind of speaking to me and wanting to do things that I wasn't necessarily at liberty to do at that time because of my age. But I think I had a good grounding. I had good parental guidance as well. So yeah, it was good.
But then why did you go and study university? Weren't you like, didn't you already know that you want to get into entertainment when you were still in high school?
No, I didn't. I think I wanted to be in entertainment when I was in primary school. And then you get into high school, you start realizing life is a lot tougher than you think it is. And you start readjusting your goals, readjusting exactly which direction you're going to take. Of course, your subjects also kind of play a role in that as well, because then you're like, okay, well, I'm good at these types of subjects, so maybe I should need to redirect my life in this way as well. So I did do accounting in high school, and I did pretty well at it. So that was one of the reasons why I chose to go into a finance background. And I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to. I knew I enjoyed entertainment because, I mean, there was a time where obviously I would do like drama and talent shows and things like that in high school, but it wasn't like a this is me type of performance. It was more like for fun, just, you know, trying to do something else with my time. And I knew I enjoyed entertainment. I just didn't know what I wanted to do in entertainment. So I think because of that, it was also just like, okay, well, what else is there to do? Maybe we'll go into finance because it's a safer route to take. And hence I studied it, and I worked in a bank for 4 years. But working in the bank space, I think that's what kind of made me realize, okay, there's more to life than just sticking to the straight and narrow. I used to make compilation CDs in high school. With those compilation CDs is how I guess indirectly I was becoming a DJ, just didn't really know it, because I would make I would make a list of songs that I wanted, and I'd get a friend of mine to burn those CDs. And it became a habit from high school, and I carried it on into varsity. And I would have like a big bag of CDs that I would carry with me in my car, or I'd take them with to like braais and stuff like that when friends would ask for us to come over, or parties. And that became like the soundtrack for the day. So I think that kind of catapulted into where I am right now.
I mean, like, that's what we call like modern day. Nowadays, we call those people playlisters. You know, the people which have the best playlist in the party. You know, they put you onto the best music.
Sure.
So when did you actually start touching on the decks, or did you start with vinyls or CDJs?
All right. So obviously with these pack of compilation CDs, a friend of mine actually suggested that, yo, man, maybe you actually need to get yourself into DJing. And that's when I considered it. I was like, DJing? I was like, no.
You were working in corporate at the time?
No, I hadn't started. I was in my final year of varsity. And I hadn't started as yet. And I was just like, should I not? I really chilled with it for a while before I decided, actually, you know what, I'm going to do it. And the thing that helped me was because I just started at corporate. So then I had the money to pay.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, would you advise kids entertainment to just have something that they can fall back on? Because it can get pretty rough and you can get hungry and stuff, you know?
100%. I mean, we all have seen what happened now with COVID and lockdown, where the artists were the ones who suffered the most because they didn't have backups, because we were all dependent on jumping on stages every weekend. And when those stages were no longer there, crickets, you know what I mean? So definitely I think we should have a backup, and it doesn't necessarily have to be school-based. It could just be you thinking further than just jumping on a stage, whether it's you opening a business, you opening a brand, you doing something outside of the entertainment space to at least earn you a different type of income. So I think that's very important. But with that, obviously I had started earning an income because I was in corporate, and that assisted me with paying for the fees for me to go to a DJ school.
Oh yeah, you went to Zintle School, ne?
Yeah. And
what is it called? Fuse Academy?
Yeah, it was Fuse Academy. And that's where I learned how to DJ. And they started us off on vinyls, actually. So I learned on vinyls at Fuse Academy. I only took up CDJs in my personal space outside of that. But the basics of DJing I learned there, as to how to catch a BPM, how to count, how to get to a BPM, which I don't think a lot of people know how to do. And yeah, scratching, starting with the vinyl, how to mix, all of that was all the basics I learned at Fuse, which is really
This is
great.
not to discredit Zinta, but I want to ask this. Do you think you needed to go to DJ school? Because we talk to a lot of DJs that are like, yo, I learned that at the crib, bro, you know?
I mean, it's different for different people. I think house is a lot easier to learn as opposed to hip-hop.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the songs are in the same tempo. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So because of that, it's easier for you to catch it and for you to mix the songs. Hip hop, on the other hand, songs are all over the place.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, it was very difficult. But another reason why I chose to go for lessons is because I do have DJ friends that are asked to kind of give me the basics. And some people can say that they learned at home, but they need to have someone telling them the basics.
Yeah.
You can practice at home by yourself, yes, but you need to know what the basics are. And that's what I needed to learn at the academy. So it's not as if I walked out of there as like the best DJ ever. I still had to go home and practice. You know what I mean? So I learned the basics there. And that's what I went to the school for. And it was really great because at least you get that very basic foundation of understanding how DJing as a skill works. So I think it's very important for people to at least know that you don't have to go to school, but you do have to understand what you're doing, because there's a lot of DJs who think that they're DJing because they're using virtual DJ. Meanwhile, it's doing everything for you. So you're not really a DJ.
But like I've seen with like a lot of hip hop DJs, they always have a laptop next to them. R&B DJs, soulful DJs. Like, does that help them like synchronize it faster or what? Why
no,
do they...
so it depends on the software that they're using. So, like I say, virtual DJ doing everything for you. So no, if it's virtual DJ, that's not a DJ. But if it's Serato is a software that was created specifically for DJs, and it's not to discredit the DJ skill. If anything, it's just to assist with organizing your music a lot faster. And I say that because it was specifically made for a lot of the hip-hop DJs that use it. House DJs, there was a stage where they were using it as well. And then they realized, okay, well, they don't really have to, because they can just go back to USBs. You must understand, whenever technology transforms, it's always how to make things easier, how to make every phase of it. So when we started with vinyls, then CDs were easier because then you can have all your songs on one disc as opposed to having one song on one vinyl, and then you move over to something like a Serato where you have all your music on your computer. It doesn't mix for you because you can still play Amahashi when you've got a Serato. All you have to make sure is that your songs are all lined up in the way that you need them. It's easier to find all your music, as well as it's easier to get the BPM of a song, because as a hip-hop DJ, you can't sit there trying to, find the BPM, because now you're sitting and you're counting. You've literally got 2 minutes to mix, so you can't be thinking about all of that. So at least the software gets the BPM for you. And then what you have to do is just make sure that you are loading the song on time and mixing it on time. Like I said, you can still make mistakes even with Serato. So you still have to. So that was the easier form of that. Then USBs came in, which made it easier now, because now you've got 32 gigs of music as opposed to just having 10 songs on a CD. So as technology transforms, it's always about how do we make the job easier, but it's not taking away from the basic skill of mixing.
Sure.
Understand?
Yeah. But then why hip hop? Because it's hard. Like hip hop is difficult. Like I just hear people mixing, let's say for example, Lucas rap line on an Usher beat or something like that. I'm like, how did they do that?
No, then that person doesn't know what they're doing. Hip hop is hard.
Yeah.
But I think it's a passion. I think a lot of hip-hop DJs who play hip-hop is because of the passion of the culture. It's the passion of the music. It's the culture. It's the vibe. It's everything encapsulated within the hip-hop space that makes hip-hop DJs want to be DJs. I won't lie, having to mix 60 songs in an hour is really taxing. But it's not to say that it isn't fun, and sometimes it's the challenge that you enjoy. A lot of house DJs only play about 10 to 14 songs in a set. They are ampling 60 songs, and then you guys are going to criticize the hip-hop DJs before you criticize the house DJs. They're not doing a lot of work. But anyway, they're really not. I mean, you can ask them. Anyway. But I think hip hop is really about immersing yourself in everything hip hop. It's not just about DJ. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so how do you transition from finance into the entertainment game? Like, what's your first gig? How do you get paid in the entertainment?
Okay, so after I taken my lessons, I obviously had just growing up in Johannesburg, also made it easier for me to understand or to know certain people who were in the industry, because I used to party a lot even when I was younger, when I was in varsity. So I knew a lot of the promoters from when I was in varsity and kind of had grown with them. So I'd ask them, yo, listen, I'm starting out, I'm trying this thing out. And it's not as if I got favor just because I knew them. They also had to kind of be skeptical because they don't want the event to flop if they put me on as well.
Sure.
So a lot of up-and-coming DJs will know that you start out by playing early. You play opening set or you play closing set. And that's usually when people haven't arrived. You're playing just for the bar stuff. You're playing for the cleaners while they're making sure everything is set up. But it's okay because you're growing yourself, you're getting yourself comfortable. And I think it's very important to start at that phase so that you also can appreciate when you are playing a headline set at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. You understand where you come from and why you need to now be the rock star of the 1 o'clock. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but yeah, I think for me to actually transition from the two, I got to a point where I was slightly getting a little bit busy with the DJing space, because I also, while I was in corporate, that's when I had joined YFM with the YTKO band of DJs. And being on YFM obviously then got people's attention of who I am. And within that same year, I also then joined Channel O. So that's
this is the basement, ne?
Yes. So in the same year of me being at YTKO, I also joined Channel O. And that was mind-blowing for a lot of people, because it was like, okay, who's this new girl? She's DJing, she's playing hip-hop, it's fresh. And I obviously had to kind of weigh up my options. And I got to a point where I was working 7 days a week, so it was exhausting because I was working Monday to Friday, and then Friday to Sunday
at
I'm
night
busy.
even. Like,
So it was just tiring. And then it got to a point where I wasn't giving 100% of myself to either of my jobs. I was slacking at work, but I was also slacking. I wasn't giving 100% of what I should be giving to the DJing space. So the decision had to come to itself, and I was like, look, I'm young, rather now than later. And if I do want to get back into finance, at least it's one of those industries where I can always find myself going back into, you know?
For sure.
So tell me, did like anyone meet you from work like, yo, like this is your colleague, and then in the night they're like, you're busy teaching on a
Not really. I think also because I was working with a lot of white old people, so they didn't really bump into me.
Yeah.
But there were like one or two black people who would see me, and they would either see me on radio or hear me on radio, or they would see me on TV, and obviously that became office conversation. And then so I couldn't hide away from it. But I think they were very supportive in what I was doing as well, and they really wanted me to succeed. And I think even now I'm still in contact with some of them as well, and they can see my growth ever since I was in the corporate space. Yeah.
So tell us about your first gig.
My first gig was horrible.
Let's start with like the night where you're preparing, like, dressing up, to go to the venue. Where was it?
All right, so the event that I played at was called, it wasn't an event as such. My friend was hosting at FTV. Okay. So FTV is actually where Onyx is now.
Oh, okay.
It used to be called FTV back then. It was just a lounge restaurant situation at the time. And a friend of mine was hosting, and I told him, I was like, yo, I'm a DJ. He's like, yo, okay, come through, come play. And I was nervous, obviously. But I think the whole time I was just like, you know what, you need to try, because at some point you need to mess up in front of other people so that you can kind of learn from it, So I used to have this thing where, because I knew what songs I was comfortable playing, I would make a list of the songs that I was going to play that night. That's how I prepared.
Okay.
Which you shouldn't do. As
Why
a DJ.
not though? I feel like that's smart.
No, it's smart as a starting DJ.
Yeah.
But I think as time progresses, don't plan your sets. Because you'll get to a set and the DJ before has played half of the songs that you prepared.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't want to prepare only those songs and then you're screwed because they literally played 20 minutes before you got there. So that's what I'm saying. Later on, once you're comfortable, don't plan your sets. Rather, you read the crowd and you go with the vibe. But yeah, so I got in there and I had my set of songs and I was ready to kind of play, but I was so nervous. I was just like, I can't do this. Then, as I was starting to play and I was like, okay, getting into it, I played maybe 1 or 2 songs. This whole group of corporate people came from Sandton Convention Center. I don't know what they were there for, but they came into FTV because it was the closest place for them to party. and they were all there just requesting all these different songs that I didn't have. And then I was just like, you guys are messing with my set playlist now. I got really nervous. I called a friend of mine. I was like, come take over. I can't do this. And I literally was just like...
You didn't even finish your set?
I didn't finish. I think I played maybe 5 songs at max. And that's when I was like, you know what, you can deal with these people. And I cut it from there. And it was really scary, and a part of me was just like, oh, do I really want to do this? But I think my love for music is what kept me going and wanting to learn from my mistakes, because I'm also a very reflective person, so I want to understand where I went wrong and how I can fix it, and that's how I got to where I am.
Do you think you come off on people as intense person?
I know a lot of people say that I am intense. I don't think I am. I just think it might be the resting bitch face, but that's not a choice either. That's just genetics.
It's just you.
It's genetics. I don't choose it. A lot of my family members have the same bitch face, so it is what it is. But yeah, people say that I'm intense and that I'm intimidating, but I think once they get to know me, then they realize that
must be
I
so
don't
difficult for guys to hit on you, though.
It's fine, because then I don't have to deal with
you. Don't have to deal with them.
So even when they approach you, but drunk people don't care. Your face, if it's happy or sad, they'll still approach you.
Yeah, but most of the time, if I'm around drunk people, I've also got my team with me, so then they stop that before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Haven't you had any public relationships in the entertainment space? Never. It's not your vibe, ne?
It's not. Outside of it not being my vibe, I'm a very personal person when it comes to my personal relationships. Okay. But I also feel like it takes away from your career, it takes away from everything you've built. And then you end up being labeled as that girl who slept with Mama. As opposed to, you're Ms Cosmo, you've done 1, 2, 3, you're on this platform. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yes.
So from that perspective, I'm also just like, and also because I work in a club, I see these guys cheating every weekend. I think I've seen enough to know that you don't date in the entertainment industry. No.
So wait, let's talk about being a woman in the entertainment industry, because that already, let's not even get into hip hop. Let's just say a woman in entertainment. How has that been treating you, and what have you learned in the past years?
Women have had to fight for their place in entertainment, which has been very difficult. When I came up, I was seen as one of the first female hip hop DJs to be on the scene. Obviously, previously in the house space, there was Sindo, there was Zinhle, but I just think the doors were slowly opening at the time when I came on the scene. And I think females are definitely work harder, and they put in a lot more effort into their craft. And I think it's very discouraging for people to not pay attention to the amount of work the females are doing. And you'll find that a lot of the women who are killing the game are all independent artists. And it's hard to be an independent artist. Guys are always just like, yo, sign me. Girls are like, I'll do this myself. It's fine. You know what I mean? So that already tells you how much of hard workers that the women are in the industry. And I really think that we need to take away this facade where we put so much pressure more on the women. And mind you, a woman has to be able to look good and sound good, whereas a guy could look like a scorpion and still be a rock star. For me, I'm just like, why can't we also have eye candy on stage? You guys want something, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not fair. So I really feel like things are not even, things are not equal, but it's okay.
We must look like Lunga Shawala.
Something must happen. You must go to the gym, not there on stage with your mkaba. I mean, you guys, people trash women on stage all the time. And women are always people are always being trashed on social media about what they look like and what they sound like. But it's like, but that doesn't fall back onto the guys in the same regard. And it's not fair. You know what I mean? The standards should be the same. So I say we need to keep pushing as women. I like that there's more women DJs. I like that there's more women rappers. I like that there's more vocalists. Well, there were always vocalists because the vocalists have always been that. They've always stood in that.
Yeah, they gave women.
But I feel like now they can develop into their own artists, you know, instead of just being the vocalist to the house songs and everything.
Exactly. So now they can be their own superstars, the likes of Shasha, the likes of Lady Zama, Simi, who all started as house vocalists and now have their own brands, which is really great. So I really think that we need to just open up our minds to how much work, just putting together the outfits do you know how expensive it is being a female artist?
Yeah.
Because you can't look the same each time. So you always have to, you have a new outfit. You must always have a new wig. You must always do your makeup. Like, makeup's not cheap.
But I feel like it's just it's just expensive to be a woman in general.
Exactly. Now it's worse because as a female artist, you want to be posting outfits all the time on Instagram, but you also can't post something you posted last month.
Yeah.
You know, which means I need to buy clothes all the time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Tell me, how much that Louis Vuitton bag that women keep on carrying around?
I don't know. I don't have one.
You don't have one. Oh, no, you don't waste money on that, ne?
I mean,
Luxury.
It's not necessarily wasting.
Yeah.
I think women who have them, kudos to them because that's how they've chosen to spend their money. I'm a lot more. I think I'm frugal. Because, I mean, I studied finance. Obviously, for me, I always think about where am I putting my money. Yeah. And for me, I would rather do something else with my money. I travel a lot. That's how I spoil myself.
Yes.
So some people would rather spoil themselves by going shopping. I spoil myself by seeing the world. So I think it's just how you decide to...
Speaking of money, was like the 5 of them paycheck your biggest?
No.
It wasn't?
No. Anybody who works in... That's why there's so many... entertainment artists who do so many things because the real check isn't in
one
where you work. So you could be on radio doesn't pay a lot of money. It's like petrol money, trust me. So radio check is low. TV, even being a TV actor is not a lot of money. Being a presenter is not a lot of money. So that's why you'll find that a presenter will try and do something else, or an actor will try and do something else, a DJ will try and do something. Do you know what I mean? Because we need to then collect the checks in the different spaces just to survive.
Definitely.
So no, it wasn't my biggest check. But the platforms is what we build on. And of course, being on those platforms is what gets us into positions for us to make more money.
And you get more bookings because you're always top of mind. They hear your voice all the time, you know.
But tell me, like, in terms of you, because you have a finance background, what do you invest your money into? What interests you in terms of growing your wealth?
Okay, well, when I was at ABSA, I worked in the property department, so I was in commercial property. So for me, property is definitely a big factor for growing money, but that's long term. So you have to also understand that property is not going to earn you money in a short time space. So you need to make sure that if you're investing now, at least by the time, let's say you invest in property when you're 21, by the time you're 41, you've paid that off and you're still young. You still can live your life. So rather start early. Outside of property, I also invest my money in unit trusts, which is it's like an investment product as well, which earns interest a lot quicker than what
the bank.
Other products could possibly earn. There's other things as well. I've also got life policies and things like that, which are also very important, especially when you are in a space like mine where I'm always on the road. If something happens to me, at least my family will still be looked after. You know what I mean? Those are very important. I also feel, what else? There's different types of products. The thing is, I don't want to get too technical, so I feel like I'm starting to sound a bit boring. But yeah, there's also, people don't want to go into retirement annuities. Those things are very important because you're going to clock one day and then you're 50 years old and you're just like, what happened to my life? I can't afford to do anything anymore. I'm too old to work. And there's the money. Those things are important.
For sure.
You might not see it today, but best believe. One day it's going to wake up.
But
let's
like
drift into
cryptocurrency, about those things too.
Bitcoin and them.
Cryptocurrency I'm interested in. I just haven't researched it enough for me to involve myself as yet. It's not to say that I'm against it. I think because I don't understand it, I haven't really placed my money there as yet. But I think once I've given myself the time, I probably will get into it,
Let's talk about the G63 boys, Forex.
I'm sure they bothering you in the DMs.
Those people are so irritating. You know what? Do you know what the sad part is about the Forex boys? The worst part about it is that Forex is a real job to real people who work in investment banks.
Sure.
So now when the irritating thing is that now they're creating this facade that when you get into Forex, you're just trying to scam me. And it's like, no, but I actually, if I work in an investment bank, I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm going to grow your money.
Sure.
It's these scammers who want to then take the shortcuts, who are now ruining it for the people who really know what they're doing.
They sell this
really
lifestyle, you know.
Do you understand? But I guess the scam is in every industry. You just have to be able to catch them. So that's the only painful part about Forex for me, is that I can't trust anyone who says they're in Forex now, which is unfortunate because it's actually a real job.
Sure. Let's drift into the Popcast. How did that come about? Can you tell us?
Okay, Popcasts obviously derived from watching a lot of YouTube shows from the United States and seeing how they've been commenting on the hip-hop culture. I think at the time we also wanted to create something that was going to be able to comment on the ins and outs of the industry, hip-hop, music, not necessarily just hip-hop only, but just like the greater scope of entertainment as a whole. And yeah, so Scoop obviously called up Dimples and said, yo, I want to work on something. Let's get something really dope going. Called me up, called Speedster, called VG. And we all agreed that it was very important. And I think all four of us had different platforms that we were sitting on at the time. Obviously, Scoop on Y, I was on 5, Speedy on Metro. And VG at the time was at MTV. So obviously because of that MTV background, that's what gave him the position to obviously be part of the Popcast. But outside of that, we all do other stuff. Like we're all DJs except for Scoops being a TV presenter. So we still had personalities outside of our different platforms, which gave us the rapport to be on a show like this. And I think we started off on a bit of a rocky start, if I must say. But I think we've also grown as a group, and we know which direction we're kind of taking things. We are going to take it to the next level. It's unfortunate we had to lose Speedster, but it's not to say that we are falling back on what we want to achieve. I think there's still so much more that we're going to put together, and it's going to be really awesome. The thing is that obviously we were slowed down by lockdown and COVID.
But I feel like you guys also you started doing really well with the lockdown situation, doing the Zoom things. I feel like a lot of people were enjoying them.
Yeah, people were watching them because they had nothing else to watch. But it also just slowed us down because we didn't feel like we were giving what we wanted out of Popcast. Okay. So we had the viewers, but we just didn't feel like we were necessarily doing what we wanted from the show. And like I said, all of our plans were slowed down because of all of that. But I think now we're slowly starting to pick it up again, which is the for instance, like Pop Radio, which is something that we've just started now, where we're now going to be interviewing different artists and speaking to them about their different journeys as well. So slowly but surely we're getting ourselves to the next level.
Do you think that the reasons that Speedster gave the public for leaving, was it the same reasons that he gave you guys?
No.
It wasn't.
I'll leave it there.
No, for me it was like, how do you handle people's backlash? Because you guys speak and you speak your mind.
Artists get hurt and everything.
Look, you can't put something out without expecting some level of critique. That's just how entertainment works. Whether you are a writer, whether you are an artist who paints, whether you are a fashion designer, whether you are in music, TV, there'll always be a critic to tell you whether they think your work was amazing or whether it was shit. Unfortunately, I don't know why people do get... I mean, I get it, like... It's sensitive to talk about something that you've put your heart and soul into. I mean, no one goes into studio thinking,
I'm making trash.
I made a lukewarm song, but let's put it out. You know what I mean? Everyone's like,
I'm the best.
Take a move. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it sucks when people don't really resonate with what you're doing. But I think artists need to stop shying away from being defensive and rather taking it as constructive criticism. And I think that will help build the industry a lot better than just feeling as though we're out to bash them. I think we try to be as positive as we possibly can, but also telling the truth. So we'll say, I'm not really happy with 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't take away from this person's artistry because of A, B, C, D. You know what I mean? With Popcast, we're trying to build more than we are trying to break people down. But when we're honest, it's part of building. Because you need somebody to come in and tell you, hey, you didn't lay that cement properly. You need to just smooth it out. You know what I mean? And that's all it is.
I mean, like, does it ever cause weird, vibes with other people?
Of course. There are a couple of
close people to you even. Like in
I
terms
wouldn't say close people. I would
But
say
just industry peers.
Industry peers, yes, definitely. It has caused a little bit of a rift here and there. But I think also those same peers who have felt some type of way have gone back and thought about it and then come back and
they're
then
like,
say,
actually, nah, yeah.
you might have been onto something there,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
no,
I mean, for me, I just want to know, like, were you happy with Speedster leaving? Though? Were you guys okay with that?
You know what answer.
Okay, you know what? We'll leave it.
No, you know what? Honestly, we're all sad he left because
Yeah.
I mean he was a big part. I mean we started with him, so we're all definitely sad that he left. We're sad about the circumstances. We're sad because he was part of our bigger plans of how we were going to take Popcast to the next level. But at the end of the day, you also need to understand that we're all in different phases of our lives, and sometimes something doesn't serve you any longer and you need to then move on, and that's what he had to do for himself, and we can't stop him from doing that. So of course, I mean, we're gonna be sad and emotional about it, but we also can't chain him to the chair. You know, he needs to go off and do what he needs to do. And shout outs for him for being brave enough to at least tell us. Because some people hold on and then they end up dragging people down because
And
they
then it
want
gets
to hold
bottled
on.
up,
Do you
you know?
understand?
Yeah.
So rather for him, I'm glad that he was man enough to at least say, look, this is not for me anymore, and let me part my ways. And
But is
I mean, we're
Vizi-
still cool with him. Like,
Of course, yeah.
yeah.
Is VG still around though? Like the past 2 episodes, 3 or whatever?
Yeah, no, VG is still part of the podcast. He's just dealing with a few issues from a workspace as well as a personal space.
Okay.
So it's not to say that he's gone completely. It's just life happens to a lot of people, and you know, sometimes you need to take time out and deal with them. So he's doing that, and then he'll be back when he's ready.
So in terms of like content, are you looking to other stuff besides the podcast as on personally for you?
I did start a podcast in lockdown called the She Social Podcast, which is a leg of my She Social eventing that I'd started 2 years back as well. Both of them have kind of gotten to a bit of a halt. Not that I want to halt them, but obviously finances are a big factor. But I also wanted to re-energize how I was building it. And I've taken this time to also kind of decide, okay, let me stop, regather how I'm going to work this thing, and then fix it again. So I'm definitely going to bring back the podcast again. So that's on my YouTube page. You'll check out some of the really awesome conversations I had with some of the women in this industry. So that's what the podcast is about, talking to females in entertainment. And I think I'm definitely going to bring that one back. That one I had to do over Zoom because lockdown. So I am going to take it now to the next level, do it in more person, get in depth, do a lot more stuff in person as opposed to just having a conversation. So I am going to bring that back.
I feel like in an artist's career, the first like 5 years, it's personally how you grow in the industry, and then moving forward, it's like how you grow other people in the industry or the public, general masses, because like you start giving back more often than before. So which stage are you at? Like, are you more social in terms of uplifting other people, or for right now you're still trying to sort out, you know, you as a person?
Life happens. I think sometimes you have plans in place. There's a lot of things that I've wanted to do to give back in a more positive way that I am doing right now. It's just, I mean, no one expected COVID to hit as hard as it did. So that's obviously been a big factor. But outside of that, like I said, I'm using my platforms to at least boost a lot of artists. So whether I play them on the radio, whether I play the music in the club, whether I have them on my podcast, that's my opportunity to expose people to females that they haven't been aware of before. But outside of that, obviously, then there's more initiatives that I want to work on later on. So maybe in the next 2 years or so, I'll be able to find myself building my foundation and other things as well. But I think it's all a timing thing.
And then in terms of women in the industry, which we haven't discovered yet in South Africa that you know of, is there people that you think that the next, you know, coming up next?
All right, so there is a really awesome rapper by the name of Blue K. She's from Cape Town. I think she's really talented, and she's probably going to be blowing people out the park. But she's still young. She's still in high school, so just give her some time. Outside of her, there is also a vocalist by the name of Lynette who... she's 19. She's also working with some really awesome artists. I've seen her in studio with the likes of Younger Chief, so I think it's going to be really awesome to see her grow. And I think it's dope to kind of see all the other artists also starting to flourish in their different spaces. Even though they're bubbling under, they're getting there. I love Dee Koala's trajectory and how she's growing herself as an artist. There's also a lot of presenters and TV and radio personalities who are doing really well. Lenanza from Tax FM, she's on radio, but she's also now a club DJ, and she's growing herself from that perspective. Zanele Potelwa also is a really awesome TV presenter, and she's also on radio on 5FM. She had a really awesome growth as well. She also started at Tax FM. So it's nice to kind of see these women starting to get into their spaces, because especially when you see them in those spaces, you know they deserve it. They just need more time.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
So let's get into the music now. When did you start into making your own music?
I released my first single 2017, but we recorded it obviously the year before because I dropped it in the beginning of the year. Yeah, and at the time I was still a bit like, do I want to do this? Am I ready? Because making music is also... it's difficult, like I said, because you don't walk out of there thinking you've made a trash song.
Yeah.
So it's scary to put something out and expect people to give you feedback, you know? So yeah, I took my time with releasing music. A lot of DJs had released music before me. Some people had even released albums.
Yeah.
And I was still taking my time, like, oh no, my song will come when I'm ready. Because I didn't want to rush it. I think it was very important for me to take my time with that, because I also didn't want to feel like I'm being forced to do it because everyone else is doing it. When I released, I thought it was at the right time. And with my first single, I had Nasty, Rouge, and Questa on the track.
Oh yeah.
That's your
And
first single.
Imagine coming out the gate like that.
And
and
you just
for
blew
me,
it up.
and for me, it was literally just a song about having a good time, having fun, and as well, it was also featuring my favorite rappers at the time. I had Nasty. He was literally just new on the scene. He had just dropped. He had just gone big with Hell No, if I'm not mistaken, when we had first started recording that song. And Questa has always been one of my favorite rappers. Like, I've known Questa since he was literally bubbling under, hanging out with Squatter Camp. So for me, it had no questions.
Oh yeah,
I
that's like
definitely-
the same clicks and everything. Ne?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Rouge, obviously, she's the baddest rapper in the game. And I really felt like she sat on the song really well. So for me, it was about choosing the right people on the song, but also getting the right vibe out of that song, which is what I think we did really well with Connect, yeah.
I mean, like, did it like fully now you had, because that song was big. So did it like make you feel like you're established as a musician now after the song dropped?
Yeah, I think because the song did so well, definitely. But you know what? You can never be established with your first single, because you can always have a one-hit wonder and then fall off.
Yeah.
So I think you only establish as an artist once you can keep
Consistently
giving real dope songs. So I think after that was okay, the pressure now of giving another really good song. But for me, because I believe in good music before I believe in a hit, I think that's what I've always kind of looked at to then say this music needs to resonate with me before it resonates with other people. Which is why a lot of my songs also kind of speak to a different phase that I'm in my life. Connect was obviously the first single. I just wanted to have a good time. Ebebe was about me pushing the women, but also still having a good time. Because also at the time when we did Ebebe, it was also when trap had just come into the scene. And I was just like, yo, Gunini, we've been head bopping. People aren't twerking in the club anymore. What's the problem? So that's what's kind of spurred that song to say, okay, let's still have the ladies having a good time in the club. And obviously I had 3 really dope females on that song, Rouge, Muesli, Shoma Josie. Shoma Josie was also new on the scene. She had just finished doing play with OK Malum Cool Cat and just finished off her album as well. She was about to drop. And I remember we dropped our videos at the same time, ABB video as well as Dumi Phone. So it was around that time for Shoma Josie's career, which was really awesome. And yeah, I think as time kind of grows, you realize what else you want to do within your music and how you want people to engage with it.
This might be a random question, but I just want to know, like, how did you get your name? Because your name is Nonqaba, Nozuko, Rwaka. Is that how you say it? Rwaka.
Hwa.
What is that? Is that Zulu, Xhosa? What is it? Oh, it's Xhosa. But yeah, how did you get to Ms Cosmo? Because that sounds...
Because I was working while I was DJing, I needed to have a bit of an alias because I didn't want to be DJ Noni. So...
you were new in the streets, you were known in the street as Noni.
Yes.
Okay.
So I then decided, okay, well, I needed to have an alias, but I didn't know what to get. I went for drinks with a couple of friends and
Yeah.
had a few
Cosmopolitans.
cosmopolitans.
Oh.
And then it was DJ Cosmo, and then I added the Ms to it just to emphasize that I'm female.
Yeah.
Because there are some DJ Cosmos in the world and a lot of them are male. So that's why I wanted to reintroduce the fact that I'm female, so hence I added the Ms.
I thought you liked the soccer team so much.
No.
But then are you gonna be Mrs. Cosmo sometime? No, I'm just kidding.
Then I would be Mrs. somebody else.
Mrs. somebody else.
I wouldn't be
But
Mrs.
there's there
Cosmo.
like plans of that happening though, something like that.
I mean, when the time is right, if it happens, it will happen.
Do you think you've met the person?
No.
No.
Maybe.
Yo,
Maybe.
everyone which is in her contact list just broke
They just
their heart.
they just shattered,
No,
you know.
not really.
Like,
no. No, I think I potentially might have met him,
Yeah.
but it's still on the fence about whether he's really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, those are my questions, bro. This was a really cool interview.
Moving forward, what does your future look like?
Check out my new single that I dropped in December, Booty, featuring Boity and Moonchild. It's a really awesome song, fun, really just out there, catchy song, so please check it out. Outside of that, more music videos. I think now that things are slowly but surely opening up, it's going to make it easier for us to tour, get back on stages and do bigger things within the music space.
Okay.
Sweet.
Can you just look at the camera and speak to your future self 10 years from now? What would you
Wow.
like to say to yourself?
You did it.
Short and sweet, dog. But yo, we need one more thing, ne?